are recording with the one and only Mr. Tom Luongo on Saturday, March 25th, 2023 at 2:04 p.m. Eastern Time. Guys, if you want to support the show, click on the little red button for locals. Don't give money to Patreon or YouTube. They're commies. Give money to Rumble and locals, and more importantly, me, because I have an American flag. I'm not a communist. That's my pitch. Use promo code Tommy. I think you get some shit for free. Mr. Luongo, how are you doing?
It's fine. I actually tell people to use Patreon all the time because Patreon's treated me nothing but really well. But we're also going to eventually be able to take money from other sources. But for now,
Patreon
it's still
won't even
Patreon.
let me post.
Oh
They
no, I
let
have.
people pay me. They don't let me post. So I don't.
That's funny, and that's so funny because dude, I've never had any problem with them, and I skirt I skirt the veil of.
Yeah.
I mean, I call these people evil Eurotrash commies, and and there's a picture of like Christine Lagarde, and he's with a meme with Christine Lagarde going, "So where's the wet spot?" I
Yeah.
mean, like, yeah, and
I call them satanic pedophiles, and
well, yeah,
that
that
made me
doesn't hurt.
trust all.
That's probably that's I mean, maybe you're just a little bit, just a little bit,
Yeah.
whatever.
I've
Look,
been
obviously, there's some Tumblerine of on Safe Space over at fucking Patreon who you pissed off, and they've twiddled the bit, and that's it. And that's what.
I have started streaming video games on this podcast channel, and then I unlist them because I don't want like potential guests to see them because they make this show look calm and collected. And like if I was playing last night with my
It's funny. I've had it's been I'm not only an avid board gamer, but I'm also I've been video gaming, like, I don't know, since there were video games, like
oh really?
going back to the Mac 2E and playing the original Castle Wolfenstein in text on,
She,
and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and all that stuff. So I play Guild Wars 2, and everybody's like, dude. And when World of Warcraft Classic came out, right? I know everybody's tuning in for the geopolitics, but fuck
oh
you. We're going
fuck
to talk
off.
about
No,
WoW
let's do
Classic.
this. This is
We're going to
better.
talk
Let's
about
do
WoW
this.
Classic for a minute. But I was doing live streams twice a week during when WoW Classic came out, and I'm like, dude, I so can't fucking wait. And we actually, like, some of my audience and I, we like got together, made a small guild, and then ran through all the original WoW content, me tanking and them. It was great. We had a blast. It was so much fun to go back through and do all, because I never did those original vanilla WoW dungeons in a guild. Right, I got into a raiding guild right at the end of vanilla WoW. Like, we were trying to, I got in and saw like Molten Core 3 or 4 times, watched us fail on Blackwing Layer, and then Burning Crusade. And then Burning Crusade is where I spent the most of the time in my happy time in WoW, with my raiding guild, and we had a great time. But I never got to do that original content under the original rules, trying to tank 5 mans without the right, as a warrior, without the right fucking skills, and then watching paladins just like ground fart and grab 6 fucking mobs, and AOE tanking, which was never an option, for real warriors. So we had a blast. I mean, and I just had the best
It's
time, like the first 6 months of World of Warcraft Classic.
it's the most fun. All my buddies play World of Warcraft. I haven't played it. I'm afraid I'll get addicted. We were
Mm,
playing there's a great game called Ready or Not, and you're a
right.
SWAT team. And it's unlike other shooters in that you're supposed to be like a cop. So you're
Right.
supposed to like zip tie everyone, like only use lethal force if necessary, no unauthorized uses of force. Now,
Mm.
obviously, I don't play the game like that. I go through just like the SS and I handcuff and execute everyone, and I fail every day. They're always like, God damn it, Tommy! What we had a perfect score. My buddy will do it perfectly. He'll look under the door with the camera, the fiber wire. He'll
Mhm.
peek it. He'll see the guy. He'll flashbang it. Less than lethal beanbag to the knee, take him down, zip tie him, and it's like, you get all these points, plus 500, plus 500. And then I'll just walk in after him with like a fucking Colt 45 and just put it against the head and just splatter on the wall. And they're like, motherfucker. But we were doing that last night, and it's so much fucking fun. And
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah,
how
I,
we get into
yeah,
that,
no,
but
seriously, I was, I'm getting ready to do my taxes because it's that time of the year. So I was going through the pile of paperwork this morning. I had to finish some work for Newsmax this morning. I had a whole bunch of stuff to do because I'm going away for 5 days, and I have a bunch of work to do out of town. And so I looked over, and it was like 1:30, and I'm like, oh, I can get another daily done on Guild Wars 2 before I have to sit down with talk to Tommy. So I pop in, tell them, all right, dudes, we have to do Fractal 15. That's all I have the time for, maybe that and one more. If we could do that one first, that'd be fucking awesome. Did so, got the loot, and popped an Ascended Ring, and out of the loot, I'm like, which is like a one in, I don't know, less than 1% chance. I'm like, score, and then we move on because I gotta get some legendary gear, baby.
dude,
That's
you should
all
get
there.
You should game with us, man. It's so
I
fucking.
hate first person shooters. I love
All
MMO.
right.
Like I'm old, and first person shooters make me fucking sick to my stomach.
Gotcha.
So
Um,
I'm always been a bit twiddler and a systems guy. So it's why I like board games. So MMOs are like the real time. Okay, so what build goes with this content?
gotcha.
And I'm that kind of guy, right? So no different than all of my ridiculous geopolitical and analysis. It's the same. I game the same goddamn way that I work, even though it's you know.
Yeah, I'm an awful gamer. I do the same. Hitman, you're supposed to be stealthy, like Red Dead Redemption, like 1899, like what every game I do, I play the same. I just
Right.
shoot everyone in the head. That's
Right.
all I ever do.
So it's funny you say that, right? And I go back to it. So for the OGs in the audience, you'll remember, maybe you'll remember a game called Syndicate, which was it was a single player squad based game where you had these androids and you had to go run in, and it was a isometric squad based game, and but it was just you, right? And Syndicate was awesome, and and the game was okay. We have to keep like clearing the map and clearing the map until we get to the final big thing, and the missions were all a little different, and it was always I remember and my wife used to sit there and watch me play, and I like, and so you'd go and like some missions you like jack them up with drugs, give them miniguns, and just blow everything to hell and gone. And then there was the mission. This mission requires stealth. Blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah. You want to do it? Why I like this? And I'm like, nope,
No.
full drugs, full miniguns. Let's just walk in
Yes.
and crush everybody because you can't possibly clear this map. I'm like, oh, watch me.
Oh, I'll take 2 hours and I'll shoot 500 people on a Hitman map. And it's also like the primary reason I truly believe in the Second Amendment is because the first thing I do is I take out all the guards who can fight back, and then I just slaughter the civilians. And
Oh.
it's yeah, and it's yeah. I my
And
my
I wondered, whether or not you were a sociopath the first time we met, but that's now confirmed for me.
yeah, yeah. Well, luckily I keep it in the realm of video games, and yeah, I know. I always just use the logic of Curtis LeMay and the result of the World War II bombing campaign, decisive victory, and I
Right.
just that's my logic.
I go. I mean, when it comes to that stuff, I mean, but believe me, there's this. It's. I was only kidding, by the way. Yes, I watched people's worst sociopathic behavior come out in a a consequenceless like environment, a la gaming, watching
Yeah,
people, gank each other. Like every guy who ever plays a freaking rogue in an MMO is just there to get his sociopathic rocks off,
yeah.
ganking newbies in friggin' Elwyn Forest. Like I get it. And like, okay, if you find that fun, and you must off. I mean, but do you like pulling the legs off of spiders in the real world? Like
No,
really?
no, 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 no.
That's never held any fascination for me, right? So,
No, no, that
um,
stuff that idea of like hurting animals that
mm,
I get I get upset when a guest doesn't have a good time. I'll call him after and be like, "Hey man, like I hope that was okay." Like I'm a total pussy. Like it's in video games, it's just people are like, "How can you do that in a video game?" I'm like, "Cuz I have the mental capacity to understand that it's pixels. It's not
yeah,
real.
I'm just killing pixels, dude.
Just like
That's all I'm
words
doing.
aren't just like words can't hurt you. It's fucking pixels. Like
Exactly.
I'm in slippers. Like but for the purpose of this show, which I kind of forgot about, after shooting people, is so somebody commented in locals last week, and they're like, "Hey, could you get Tom back on for one, the war between the Fed and ECB, which I think we've covered several times before, but I mean, I guess we
Yeah.
could hit it again. Two, and then I don't know what this is, how SOFR supplants LIBOR.
Yep.
That's cuneiform to me. And then three, general thesis on how the world is transitioning away from euro dollars. Now, again, I understand about four of those words, and they're all the prepositions and like nothing else, but it's what the people have requested. And
Fair enough.
because I have
So I'm
access to
not allowed
you,
to talk about WoW Classic anymore, and
we
how
can
I
keep
was
we
an
can do that for another hour. I don't
absolutely
give a shit.
fucking brilliant freaking tank.
I
Whatever.
don't give a shit. We can talk
I know
about
you do.
anything.
But no, I'm going to say two things. One, I was on with the Duran boys on Alex and Alex on the Duran on Thursday morning, and if you haven't watched that live stream, it's about an hour and a half. Um, I was probably in my best form and in terms of trying to explain all of this, including the recent stuff. I mean, I rarely like give myself a good grade. Like my Rotten Tomato score of me in
Yeah.
media is pretty low. So usually
Yeah.
around 25 to 30%. But this one was one of those where I'm like, okay, I'm on point here because I was cogent and everything else. And part of the reason why is because I'd already given the talk a couple of times. I had just done a podcast for my subscribers over my Newsmax newsletter, like not 20 minutes before. So I already had it all fresh in my head.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I'm going to leave aside all the stuff with Silicon Valley Bank and Credit Suisse, because that's another layer of complexity and words that you don't understand.
Okay.
Right. And I don't want to go there. So let's start with the basic stuff. So the Fed versus the ECB is now no longer a theory. It's obvious that, and I'm going to like go back to, I'm gonna add a simple layer to this. If y'all have not read or listened to Danielle DiMartino's Booth's book Fed Up, where she goes through the history of her when she was at the Fed, and you go through, especially in the second half of the book, where she's describing the zero bound interest rate policies of Bernanke and Yellen, and the divisions, the ideological divisions, and the cliques within the Fed. It was very clear that Yellen, who was president of the San Francisco Fed, and a hyper Keynesian, like all the woman's academic work is on labor theory, for Christ's sake. So add two words and we have Marxism, labor theory of value, right? So it's very clear that all she really cares about is labor, Marxism. She's always been a freaking commie within the Fed, and the San Francisco Fed turned a blind eye to so much stuff during the 2008 lead up to the 2008 financial crisis, and the excesses during QE and ZERP years, and now the fallout from that, which is Silicon Valley Bank, which became this nexus of vipers of this thing wasn't really a bank as much as it was an onshore shadow bank, meaning it did a whole lot of non-bank style transactions and deals with third parties, right? So it was, and because of that, you could look at it like an offshore Cayman's bank doing a lot of shady crap. For people who, if you don't want to know the mechanics of it, just understand it's why people like bank in the Caymans or the Bahamas or any of these other friggin' British protectorates. They're all to evade various banking regulations. While people were using Silicon Valley Bank as in venture capital, and the venture capitalists in Silicon Valley were using Silicon Valley Bank in much the same way, and then levering up a whole bunch of money. But a lot of the money that was being dumped in the Silicon Valley Bank was actually stuff that first was spent by Congress, went offshore, got levered up overseas, and then brought back to the United States, and then levered up again through venture capital for AI, the latest versions of social media versions of pets.com and all the rest of this shit that they were literally bankrolling for nothing. And Silicon Valley Bank, having talked now to at least half a dozen people in the industry, they've all said the same thing. Well, if you had a dumb idea and you couldn't get it funded anywhere else at a real bank, you went to Silicon Valley Bank, and they were like, "Oh yeah, here's $1 billion."
Okay.
So there was a lot of that going on. So this bank was under the auspice of the San Francisco Fed, which is the nexus point where Janet Yellen set the culture within the San Francisco Fed while she was there for God knows how many years, and her successor was one of the officers of Silicon Valley Bank, if not the CEO. After he was San Francisco Fed president. Like, so this line of succession. It's almost like Davos owned the San Francisco Fed and used it to create this ridiculous thing, this $255 billion, what's the best way of putting it?
Fuck.
Yeah, it's not even a clusterfuck. That's one way of putting it. I'm like trying to come up with something really descriptive in banking terms.
Okay.
But it's just think of it as this is, the worst kind of offshore, pile of money sitting onshore doing damage and being distributed around the U.S. in order to do the worst kind of stuff you can think of.
Okay.
And that needed to be taken out. As far as I'm concerned, I think the Fed did that. They did that the same way because they had their hooks into crypto, just like Silvergate did, and just like Signature Bank did. They were all, funneling money back and forth through the various stable coins, which the Fed can't stand because, well, hey, they're just synthetic dollars again, right? Any stable coin that's pegged to the U.S. dollar is a synthetic dollar. If it spends, if it attracts investor capital, and then gets levered up through these ridiculous DeFi projects paying 78,000%, right? Think about that. They're just creating dollars. They're creating synthetic dollars out of thin air from magic beans. Worse than anything the Congress ever does. Worse than, I mean, it's the worst of the worst. And it's the end, it's kind of the logical end of the fractional reserve banking system. So all the Fed is trying to do now is say, okay, you know what? That's enough. Why don't we stop that? And this is Powell's been saying this for 15 years that this has been wrong, even when he was a junior member of the FOMC. When he was a junior member of the board, a non-voting member of the board, all that, and he was always like skeptical of Bernanke's 2% inflation target. He was always, he never went along with QE. He never liked it. Never wanted to go to the zero bound. I mean, even before he became FOMC chair.
Gotcha.
So there's this ideological fight here that's always been, that's been exigent within the Fed since Greenspan left.
Okay.
So now we're at the moment in time where you have to ask yourself, who do these people actually work for? Because I look at Yellen as and then of course Obama puts Yellen in charge of Treasury. Why? Well, of course, because she's going to be the one to shepherd fiscal policy and treasury policy so that it's as antagonistic as possible to anything Powell tries to do to normalize interest rates, to normalize monetary policy, and all the rest of it. The fun part about this is that, and the goal of that, of course, is to sell what's left of the United States out back to the European globalists, where we sent all our freaking money to be levered up and destroyed and destroy our cap table, basically the balance sheet and the cap table of the United States through this Eurodollar system. And guys like, I hate to say this, guys like Jeff Snyder and Brent Johnson, Brent Johnson of dollar milkshake theory, don't get it. They're like, if generously they're knee-jerk libertarians, they go, well, the Eurodollar system is more market-based than the central planning of the Fed, so therefore it's better. Like, no, it's not. It's not a market process. It's a market process that was only capable of it coming into existence at the zero bound, which is the ultimate abrogation of free market economics, which is that investment, that new money doesn't cost anything, that there's no risk associated with any of this, that there's no risk associated with making new loans or, funding fucking tranny bathrooms and all the rest of this shit.
Yeah.
Like, dumb ideas don't die when money is free. No, if anything, dumb ideas proliferate.
No natural selection
in a beer wort when money is free, and that's what we're living through today. And so I cannot abide the idea that these guys think that that the Eurodollar system is somehow superior to the Federal Reserve. It's complete nonsense, because none of this is promoting the return of community banking. None of this is promoting the return to basic net interest margin banking, where you've got an idea, you go to a bank and say, look, I've got this idea for a local business that we need. I need $50,000 to open my business. What are you going to charge me? Will you fund the loan, and how much is it going to cost me? The depositors, the bank takes $50,000 of the deposits, gives it to you, charges you 6%, and pays the depositors 3%. The bank takes 3%, the depositors get 3%. You get the money for 6%, and you go out and make 8% with it. Because that's net interest margin. And the bank's net interest margin under that model I just laid out is 3%. It's a good business. Not bad.
So
but is the Eurodollar system, and the shadow banking system, which takes all of these zero cost dollars and levers them up to fucking Lehman levels or worse, that's somehow free fucking market? How about you go fuck yourself and we'll call it even? Because that's the biggest bunch of fucking horse shit I've ever heard. It makes me angry, because it actually feeds these conspiracy theories, like real conspiracy theories, like by guys like Jay Dyer and others who say, oh, well, libertarianism was just a big CIA op to justify destroying our country. And I'm like, no, we're just living through half a fucking or two-thirds of a generation of zero cost money, and everything's fucked up. Well, no shit, everything's fucked up, because you've just this is the ultimate corruption of money as a medium of exchange and of risk assessment in the private capital markets. So returning the banking system to some form of proper risk assessment where the risk-free rate isn't zero, because it's not. Like, it's just dumb. I mean, these guys are just taking the bond equation, which was never designed for R star to equal zero, and made it equal to zero, and then we get infinite freaking leverage. It's fucking retarded, Tommy. It really is. It's really retarded. And guys like this who promulgate these freaking ideas and who's smart enough to know better, at this point in time, you got to wonder what their freaking motivation is. Is it ego? Do they work for somebody else? Like, this is the ultimate black pill.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, it's just like, fuck that. Powell's just like, I just want to return everything to a base. I want to get back to like lending money at risk and putting capital back to work. Can we do that? Now, clearly, the Europeans don't want that. The Europeans want to collapse the system. George Soros is very clear: collapse the system, get rid of all the sovereign debt, default on the debt, issue perpetual debt, and then start all over again, but with a central bank digital currency that puts everybody in friggin', minority report, where they're tracked and they have no access to money unless the powers that be say you're allowed to have access to money. This is what deplatforming is all about. This is what COVID jails are all about, and all the rest of it. It's to get you primed to accept that this is the way the world is going to be. Fuck you.
Yeah. Fuck that.
So this is the fundamentals of the war. Like, because the way I look at it, just one last point is that, look, the commercial banks in the United States, the guys like JP Morgan and Goldman and all they're all scumbags, as you and I have talked before. But that doesn't mean that they look at the other guys and go, you're far worse. Like, we can get back to, like, the big banks don't want the basic net interest margin banking, but they don't want as I've been saying in multiple podcasts now, they don't want to fund a new library in Palatka. Okay. They don't want to, underwrite a loan for a feed store in Tarpon Springs. Like, that's not what they want. Okay. They don't want that business. They needed that business in 2008 when the shadow banking system collapsed and all of their balance sheets had blown up and the whole old system had blown up. Then they needed the good assets out of the smaller banks to roll onto their balance sheets and in order to stabilize themselves. Today, we have the exact opposite. The big banks are just fine. There's nothing wrong with any of the big banks in the United States. The problem now is that as a consequence of raising interest rates very quickly, the balance sheets of the smaller banks have had a big hole in them, because as interest rates rise, the U.S. Treasuries that they had on their balance sheets in order to offset as collateral to offset their deposits were dropped in value. And this is why, I don't know about you, but I've seen it. Like, I remember just kind of musing a couple of months ago saying, look, why is it that we're at 4.5% and my credit union is still paying me 0.15% on deposits? Well, clearly because my credit union has a big hole in their balance sheet and they're pocketing the difference and they're trying to recapitalize before they pay out, before they start paying out interest again. The interesting part about the bank term funding program, the response to Silicon Valley Bank, was that all the regional banks could go to the Fed and pledge those treasuries, which are say 20 or 25% underwater, pledge them to the Fed at par and fill the hole in their balance sheet. Get a loan and fill that hole in their balance sheet, which will now allow them to start offering savings rates. What's that going to do? It's going to make a nice big demand for U.S. Treasuries to firm up the U.S. banking system. This is different. So it's not the same crisis as 2008, and it further underscores the argument that the Fed is trying to return our banking system back to something more rational that we all understand, as opposed to the casino that we've lived under for the last 15 years. And because we libertarians have been so good at calling into question the efficacy of having a central bank in the goddamn first place and the Fed, it's taken people who have a shallow understanding of what the problem is. But they're not wrong. Central banking is evil. Fractional reserve banking is not a good thing. I don't give a shit what anybody says. I believe in property rights. I believe in, I'm still a Rothbardian at heart. 100% reserve banking, hard money, the whole nine yards. Fundamentally, that's what I believe. I believe in real growth at 1 to 2%. That's what I believe in. And everything else is just people trying to pull forward production from the future that they shouldn't be trying to through the central planning of interest rates. And if the market needs more credit, let the market deal with the credit. Don't make the central government the arbiter of what the price of credit is. And that criticism by Ron Paul and others is absolutely trenchant and on point. But we don't live in that world. We don't live anywhere close to that world. We've got 25 to 30 years worth of damage, worth of malinvestment that has to be unwound if we want to do so and cause as little harm as possible. As long as we understand what the order of operations is to get from where we are to where we want to go, and not just go, well, we're at point A, we need to get to point Z. How about we just, get rid of that whole, what was that whole middle thing? The classic line from What Fish Call Wanda. What was that middle thing, right? She doesn't understand anything. Let's just go from A to Z, or like the underpants gnomes, crash, lever up the banking system, nothing, profit. Like, or how about lever up the banking system, delever the banking system, crash the economy, go to Mad, and ignore the whole Mad Max thing that you would do in the interim. So, how do you, as Federal Reserve Chair, rebuild a banking system that doesn't immediately fall apart? Well, you do it in stages, and you raise interest rates until you break something, and then you deal with the fallout of what you broke. It's not going to be perfect. You're gonna take unbelievable criticism from everybody, from the people whose oxes you're goring, the ones who have been making money with nothing, trading nothing for something for the last 15 years. They're going to be pissed off. You're going to piss off all the politicians who think that the gravy train of deficit spending is going to continue forever. You're going to piss off the foreign oligarchs who, thought that they were going to be able to wage war against humanity in perpetuity. And hey, you're even gonna piss off those quote unquote libertarians who are hyper sensitive to any form of a whiff of central planning, because they're acting and responding ideologically as opposed to practically, and not using the arguments of Austrian economics and Austrian business cycle theory to analyze what's happening, as opposed to just putting their standing on their fucking soapbox and no, central bank is evil, no, and I learned this, and the sad part about this is that this is nothing new for me. Okay, when I was doing this stuff during 2000, when I was a person trying to figure all this shit out back in 2008, and I didn't understand anything. I knew that of all the guys that I read over at the Mises Institute and over at Lew Rockwell on a regular basis, the only one that made any practical sense about what was going to happen next was Gary North. Because Gary North would just apply the rigor mostly consistently, more consistently than anybody else. He didn't get everything right, but he got things more right than anybody else. He said, look, this is what Bernanke is doing. It's going to lead to this. It's not going to lead to hyperinflation. He said that, and while everybody else was losing their minds, I'm like, oh, that's the guy I want to listen to, because he made arguments that made sense. I'm like, and so I've just been honing that for years now. And so when we got to this moment in time, when Powell starts, draining the offshore dollar markets first by stealth tightening and then by actual tightening, and everybody's denying the fact that he's tightening when it's clearly happening, like, I gotta ask, like, do you even know what you're saying? Do you even know what you're talking about? Because clearly you don't, because you're wedded to an idea and to a reality that isn't true. It was true. It's not any longer. Yellen is no longer, because personnel is policy, and Yellen has always wanted to destroy the United States banking system. I think people can disagree with me about that, but that's what her record clearly shows, that that's been her goal. It's been Bernanke. It was Bernanke's goal. And, they always had a plan to undermine the Fed's credibility, I think, in order to roll the whole thing up to, the globalist institute one banking government, one world government with one banking system. You get rid of commercial banking, leave the nominal central banks in charge, and leave the Fed just one more central bank amongst many, as opposed to it being the central bank of the United States.
Gotcha.
And I'm a patriot, and in that way, because I still believe that we have the best legal system. I have problems with the Constitution. It's still better than anything else that's out there.
Yeah.
In theory, not in practice. So, do we want to be France?
No.
Because that's where we're headed.
This is the least worst place. America has a ton of flaws, and I'll never deny that. To deny that is retarded. But, I always use this analogy. I'm on the 5th floor. Let's say this building catches on fire and the staircase collapses. I'm looking out. There's a tree on the sidewalk. I'd jump for that because I think that goes up to like the 3rd floor. And I'd probably break some bones. I'm probably getting impaled. But it's better than choice B, burning to death, or choice C, jumping and just going 5 floors and hitting the pavement. Right. I don't want to jump out my window onto a tree. That's not something I want to do.
Right.
However, when scanning the landscape, you go, that's the least worst one. And yeah, Janet Yellen just kind of seems like a dumb commie bitch. And for the monetary thing, the free money, is that the equivalent of everybody gets a trophy? Is that just the same horseshit? No one has to no one has to pitch like, here's why my investment's better. Instead, it's just, hey, I want to fucking
and worse, we can lay off the risk because we can sell the risk to the pension funds who need yield.
I want to make an LGBTQ transition clinic for a petting zoo. You're funded.
You're funded, and because don't worry about it, because it doesn't matter, because I'm just going to take that money. You just take that money and we'll sell it to this. We'll sell the idea to this guy. We'll securitize the risk, and then we'll sell it, and then we'll slice it up into 50 different tranches. We'll stick it into 50 different bond funds. We'll slap a AAA rating on it, and then we'll take the proceeds from the magic beans portion of this thing, and we'll pay 6% out to the fucking pension funds who are so desperate for yield that that's what they do.
The chickens.
And they consider this commerce. They consider this investing. They consider this like rational economic behavior by humans.
Eventually,
fuck you people.
Like eventually, it all comes home. Like it does eventually, and then
eventually math wins, Tommy.
Yeah, but then I always think about this, and this is not like an admiration or an approval, but more so just like an objection or an objective like observation. Maybe the idea is you can just do whatever the fuck you want because you have the biggest military, and it's just like, yeah, it doesn't need to make sense. We'll just bomb them, and it's like that's.
Well, I mean, that's part of it. Part of it was, we have financial nuclear weapons, access to SWIFT, blah, 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 blah. We have all this money out there that's capable of destroying government. It's just destroying governments, that starts coups, that funds color revolutions, that, funds all this CIA operative shit, like all this stuff, COVID vaccines, all of this stuff is all zero-bound money.
Yeah.
And it all stops when money is 5%. It all stops like dead fucking cold, especially when it's this leverage. Because what leverage giveth you on the way up in terms of power, prestige, and wealth, and I use that term loosely, sarcastically, ironically. I intend this breast satirically. Sorry, that's the line I was going for from coupling. It takes us away twice as fast on the way down because you're levered to the tits, and a 10% move against you can wipe you out if you're levered up 20-1.
So
because you have no underlying capital left to say. If you control $20 million worth of assets, on a $1 million capital base, right? Like, once in order for you to maintain your leverage ratio, if you wind up losing, if those assets that are out there at $20 million drop to 10 million in value, like you now don't have, you have $1 million worth of money that you could pay out to the people that you owe money to. So all that has to happen is that when you're levered up 20 to 1 with your $1 million that you have on hand in cash versus the 20 million that you actually owe people, if that drops to, what happens when it drops to 19? Well, you're wiped out. Like, if you've ever bought stocks on margin, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
So back to the video games. It's back. It's the objective. Like, if I was to remove myself from the real world, this is a video game. Yeah, I'm doing all this shit. I'm just printing money. I'm kicking the can down the road because it eventually comes to, if anyone really comes and tries to like call me on my debt, I'm just gonna put the Abrams tank out and put a sable round through their family.
But yeah, what happens? But what happens when you don't have the Abrams? You can't pay the guy to bring the Abrams tank to bear. What happens when you run out of Abrams tanks and you can't buy anymore?
You just go to war.
You try. How are you going to pay for it?
Well, it doesn't matter.
Lever it up again.
Just go kill them.
Okay,
it's like,
with what? Just sent we've sent a lot of. This is why Putin is like draining the vitality, the physical vitality through a war of attrition in Ukraine of all of NATO.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that behind the scenes we're not gearing up for war. Not just us, but the Brits and all of Europe. Oh, they are spending money like you would not fucking believe.
Oh no, they want the war.
They want the war. They're going to get the war.
Everybody
they have to have the war in order to cover this. And that's the next move here. But what Powell can do in the short term, in the near term, is make that cost of going to war so high that we can't afford to stay at war for very long. And then the big question is how does it all work out in the end?
It's but then there's like you got to zoom out even more to like, I mean, what's the average lifespan? 80? These people don't give a shit. Kick the can down the road, print the money, and then it's
right.
And then it's over, and then I'm done.
Well, that's why so much of this is happening, because
we've been doing for 110 years.
The generations that actually put this policy in place are trying to preserve what's left of it.
Yeah.
To pass on to their posterity because they're all done.
Yeah, and then just start a war, just bomb them. Who gives a shit? Just everybody wants.
We have to get rid of all these useless eaters anyway.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck.
No, they don't. They have their bunkers. They have their mansions. They have their real wealth that they've stolen. They have their big stacks of gold coins.
Yeah,
and all the rest of it.
Yeah, no, it's you just math does win, but then you just bomb them, and that's just kind of what we've been doing. And who gives a shit if it doesn't work out? Just, I mean, we're 30.
It's sad.
It's very sad. I mean, we're $30 trillion in debt. But I mean, man, if I had $30 trillion, like, yeah, I'm just gonna buy the biggest military ever, and then come try to collect your debt.
Well, they're not. Like, what's going to happen is this. The problem is that there's about $7.5 trillion of that debt is owned by foreign central banks. That has to be, some of that is going to have to be brought back on shore.
Yeah, you have to
recapitalize the U.S. banking system, which is absolutely the right thing to do. But the other thing that has to happen here is that Congress has to put the pressure, that has to hold the line on spending. And I just saw something at Zero Hedge this morning, and I tweeted it out. And of course, I tweeted it out with a friggin' typo in it. So of course, what should have been $100 billion in that in that tweet was $100, which doesn't make any sense. But it's top general admits Pentagon is training coup leaders in Africa. When I say, look. And all I said was, that's interesting. And you tell me that we can't find $100 billion to cut out of the friggin' budget to pay for the interest rate to service the debt at 5% versus at 0%? Really? Or 2%, or whatever, the 200 billion or whatever. We can't find $200 billion in a $4.6 trillion budget. And we're funding coups in Africa. Really? Is that area you think breathing? Like we can't figure this shit out? That's value you think you're adding to the balance sheet of the United States? Like, really? Like, because nobody wants to fund coups in Africa except for the people who have access to the purse strings to make the decisions on whether or not we fund coups in Africa.
Yeah, you got to get those
And
natural resources somehow.
so I think it's no, it's not about that. We have plenty of resources. It's not about that. It's about they say that that's what it's about, but what it's really about is control.
Yeah,
What it's really about is them being able to decide who gets to and who doesn't get to be the help.
gotcha.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
Because the Africans would be happy to trade it to us.
what
They'd
do
be
you?
happy to partner with us and build but no, we're talking about the leadership of both the European continent and many of the people who are in political positions in the United States that have a colonial mindset. All they want to do is extract the wealth and keep everybody in a new form of feudalism. What the European Union is designed to do is to roll everything up into a new form of European feudalism, except it's going to exist as your digital persona, where you won't be able to get, because if you can't get access to real capital through anything other than through your phone, well, guess what? And they control your phone, they control the currency, they control the digits that are available to you on your phone. Well, then they own you.
Yeah,
And now you have to go to them to, can I have some dinner?
yeah.
And we're back to Oliver. Please, sir, I'd like a second bowl of gruel.
More, please. Yeah.
Please,
Uh,
sir, can I have some more? No.
yeah, they're gonna look at they're like, you haven't hit your day, you haven't hit your yearly child mutilation quota. You haven't
You
chopped
haven't
off
hit your
either of your
daily
son's dicks
quota of genuflecting to the Fuhrer,
to the rainbow flag. And you have
whatever.
three sons and you haven't chopped off any of their dicks. What kind of
Mm-hmm.
father are you?
What kind of father are you?
You have
You
a
haven't
daughter
sacrificed,
and
and you haven't, and worse. And then after doing that, you didn't send them off to fight and die against the Russians.
yeah, and
What's wrong with you?
you didn't give him myocarditis before kindergarten. What kind of father are you? No money for you. No money for you.
Nope.
Yeah, it's fucking evil.
It
Dude,
is evil. But
I'm gonna
that's what
go.
they. But that's what they think is the best. That is honestly what they think is the best that humanity can aspire to. Tommy, I want you to understand this. They really do think that we're just animals.
Yeah,
And
no,
we're,
I know.
and that they're somehow the enlightened philosopher kings that are going to lead us into the next generation. Like, good news for you, baby. I want Powell to go to 12% to break these people. That's how angry I am at this. Like, I don't care. If you really want to get my libertarian bona fides, like in panties in a twist, I'm like, fuck you. Raise it. Oh, really? You think five's bad? I'm sorry. We at the FOMC under Chairman Luongo, um, put forth the policy proposal after he twisted everybody's fucking arms. He asked for 8% rise this month, but we're only going to give him 7. I'm like, all right, fine. We're going to 12%. Fuck you. What? You can't do that. Yes, I can. That would be irresponsible. Fuck you. I know that. That would bring everything to a halt. It would be terrible. And that's why I'm not FOMC chair. For many reasons. But the least of which is that I would literally have already been at 7. And I think Powell has been right to go the way he has, even though the histrionic and vindictive Italian and Sicilian that I am would say we should already be at 7 or 7.5.
Yeah,
But
one of the reasons why you won't be a chair is because this show is, and I gotta be careful about how I say this. This show is a lot like the Nazi high command, in that, listen, if they win, you're gonna be master of the universe. But if you lose, you're gonna be hung. So if this podcast succeeds, you're good if you've been on here. If it just goes down, it's gonna be like, now, Mr. Luongo, we saw that you've appeared on Tommy's podcast. You'd be like, I disavow that guy. I mean, who would have known that what he was gonna do for episode 1500 or whatever scandal I get mired in? It's gonna be something like that, dude. I got to piss real quick. Tell everybody where to find you.
you can find me at tomluongo.me on my blog. You can find me on Patreon at patreon.com/gold goats and guns. You can find me on Twitter at pissing off the world at TFL1728. But no, Tommy's not wrong about this. Like the thing you have to remember, anybody in this audience who, and I'm sure that there were very, very few of you, to remember the following thing, which is that if you think you're going to wind up if you think that you can be the person going along with these people to get along and just survive it by working with the system, you'll be the first ones behind the chemical shed and shot. Antifa is going to be the ones that are shot first because they're like way too close. They know too much. And in every kind of purge like this, and every kind of situation like this, it's always been the ardent supporters, the shock troops, who wind up getting wiped out first. Oh, by the way, like anybody watching the Bad Batch on Disney Plus should know exactly what I'm talking about. The first thing this is the story they're telling. The Empire is taking the story they're telling is that the Empire immediately after taking power distrusted the clones, and so they're rounding up the clones and wiping them out. And that should tell you everything you need to know.
What did I just walk in on?
You walked in on me talking about. Have you been watching the Bad Batch on Disney Plus?
No,
The Star Wars, the sequel to the Clone Wars.
no. I just walk in
Really
here
good.
and then you got to wipe out the clones, and I'm like that.
No, well, that's what I mean. Is that what happens? Is that the story they're telling in the Bad Batch is phenomenal, because the minute the Empire took over and became the Empire, the first thing they did was they started taking out was one, monopolizing cloning technology, wiped out the Kaminoans, the big tall people from the supremely awful Attack of the Clones, and then went to war against the clones themselves to replace them with human troops, the stormtroopers. So what did they do? It's like in every violent takeover, in every violent revolution, right? When we pass from one system into the next in a more authoritarian system. And so the ultimate authoritarian regime that only exists as a projection of power, that's the Empire. What did they do? They took the troops that fought for them, the old system, and they got rid of them. That fought to help them take, and now you're watching them, watching the Empire take out the clones. It's really sad. It was layered in the first season. It's completely obvious what's going on in the second season, and it's really, really good. And like people have a lot of complaints about Star Wars today. I got news for you. Like not every series they put out is any good. Like Obi-Wan, classic example. It's terrible. It's not good. But all the Filoni stuff is fucking, all the Clone Wars shit is all fucking amazing.
Really?
Yeah, I mean it's really good. I mean even this season of The Mandalorian is going in a direction I was not expecting at all, and I think it's a very interesting. The individual episodes have been they haven't been great, but I'm going to wait to pass judgment until I see the entire story, because where they are after the fourth episode, I don't want to give any spoilers on that. Most people don't watch the Bad Batch, but you should. It's probably the best thing they put out next to Andor since the end of on television. Like all the television shows, the Bad Batch and Clone Wars season 7, the Bad Batch and Andor are the best things that they put out, and they're so good that you're really missing some great storytelling and some great lessons being told at a moment in time when they need to be told. Like to be so black-pilled is to believe that nothing good comes out of Hollywood is just bullshit, because that's not true.
No,
There's
yeah,
a lot
they still make good stuff. Yeah,
yeah, they make good stuff. It's
yeah,
just it's just the good the
ratio sucks, but
no, the ratio is not great. But if you can find part of what I like to do is to remind people every once in a while that hey, a lot of art that happens when divorced from the time that it was actually produced, it gives you, when you go back to watch it later, it gives you a different perspective. I was watching, to give you another great example of this, because I don't, this actually matters to me. So back in the 1990s, when you were just a pup, you're how old, Tommy?
I was born in 1990.
Okay, so in 1994, this little show premiered on Warner Brothers cable network called Babylon 5. If you've not ever watched Babylon 5, Tommy, you need to set aside a good 110 hours.
Okay.
I'm dead serious. Now, B5 to us back in the 90s was a revelation, because it was the day that television grew up. It was the show in which we saw how television implied the path to how television grew up. I'm watching B5 again for the first time in probably 15 years, and I've watched it front to back so many times it's not even funny. I mean, even the episodes I despise, I've watched 5 times. Okay, like even the really bad episodes, and there are a few out of 110. I'm watching it now with my daughter. She's almost 17. My daughter absolutely adores Babylon 5. We're in the middle of season 2. where it's just starting to get good. Even season one is so, it's a typical season one of a television show. It's a little, they're still getting their feet wet. They're still trying to figure out what to do, how it works and everything else. And the 90s production value and CG is going to be a turnoff for people. But it's the storytelling, it's the acting, it's the writing. It's so sharp. And B5 was told you of a time of chaos and war, of intolerance and old hatreds and all of this stuff. But it was being told during the middle of the 1990s. Now, the 1990s were the good years. This was post-Soviet Union, the unipolar moment. Greenspan was, juicing, the internet was just hitting. Greenspan was juicing the money supply and making everybody happy. It was the roaring 90s. No one really wanted to hear the story of that then, right? Not to say that Babylon 5 didn't do well. It did fine, and it's achieved cult, and not only cult, but classic status. Anybody, no one who's ever watched B5 speaks ill of it, really. Watching it today, at this moment in time, as it was telling us 30 years ago what was going to fucking happen, you'll just be flabbergasted.
Just chilling.
It's really good. And it's even better today than it was then. Not because the production values haven't aged like old fish, like to quote Bruce Campbell. Old television shows age like old fish is a Bruce Campbell quote.
Yeah.
And he's right about that, mostly. It's because the storytelling, the writing, everything about it is so good and was so ahead of its time and so prescient and so archetypal. It's worth every moment of your time because it spoke immediately to my 16-year-old daughter, 16, nearly 17-year-old daughter, who, once she was 2 episodes in, didn't care about the cheap production values by today's standards or anything else, because it didn't matter. The story was good. Characters were great. All of that. And it works. And it's still, and I keep telling her, I'm like, you haven't even gotten started yet. We are only just now beginning to start to see the payoffs of the middle of season 2, payoffs of everything that's been set up and everything that's to come. And even for us, my wife and I, old veterans of watching B5, are seeing new things in how it was conceived. And the writer in me and the structuralist in me is just flabbergasted by what Straczynski pulled off then, because he had it all mapped out and he knew exactly what to do. And it's brilliant. And it's valuable. So there's plenty of stuff out there, and to help you make sense of this stuff than just sitting there listening to podcasts or listening to the latest news. Sometimes you need to balance all of this stuff off of each other and not just be so distraught and so angry that you've been betrayed by that Disney betrayed your youth, or Star Wars raped my childhood, to quote Chris Gore from Film Threat when he saw the Phantom Menace for the first time. Like, really? Like, it's time to grow up. It's time to realize that there's still good work being done out there. You still want to support good work, and you still want to use what is great work as a metaphor by which to tell the story that's happening today, because this is how humanity survives periods like this, having stories to tell each other that helped us get through the previous crisis. That's all storytelling is. It's speaking to the future generations of humanity about how we got through this period, so that you have the strength and maybe some seeds of knowledge that we can pass on, so to help you get through the next crisis, because everything is cyclical. And this has happened before, to quote Battlestar Galactica, and this will happen again.
Yeah, in January I read Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. That book was written in like 1904. But man, I mean, the takeaways were just all the same. It was just like, work harder, don't make mistakes, don't be an idiot. The system is out to fuck you. Don't be idyllic, work hard, like don't let your pride take over, find the way to succeed. And the red pill is like, if you have more money, you're probably gonna have less problems. Like, And that's about, a guy in a Chicago meat packing, 10 years before the Federal Reserve was before the Federal Reserve was created.
Right.
But those lessons are in 2023. I listened to it and I was like, this is fucking incredible. Just like the daily, just like grinding of like going to I'm tired, go to the gym, shut up, do the work, do the podcast. And it's just like Jurgis Rudkis, it doesn't matter. I will work harder. It's just what he keeps saying. And it's like,
and it's also important. I just got finished writing the latest issue for the news, for the letter that I do for Newsmax. And I got very philosophical in that issue. And we always do in the Gold Goats and Guns newsletter.
Which is a link to that's in the links to all stuff's in the description.
The Newsmax podcast, the Newsmax thing is a different product with a different focus. But Gold Goats and Guns is mine and Dexter Weiss. We can do whatever the fuck we want with it. And we tend to take a very high level, highbrow, and not even highbrow, but we tend to try and take a philosophical approach to every issue, tying together a big theme, tying together, tying what we're seeing together thematically to try and come at what we're seeing from a different point of view every month, to speak to people in different ways, to help them, possibly see it differently. And we think long and hard about this stuff. I mean, this goes on. These things are always the product of hours of conversation and whatnot. And and the hard part is, it's always, we're trying to remain fresh about this, but it's like, look, we come down to the same things every time. Don't be distracted by the bullshit. Don't be distracted by the noise. Your goal is to accumulate real assets and real wealth. Money is not real wealth, certainly not digital money, and certainly not money money is a means to an end. It's a means to a better life. It's a means to whatever that better life is to you, not to Klaus Schwab, not to Janet Yellen, not to fucking Lizzie Slapaho fucking Warren, not to any of these people, to you. Okay. And whatever that means. And as from an investment perspective, you should be acquiring tangible assets, because this is how you build real wealth. We're watching Yellowstone at the same time. Like, my wife and I are watching Yellowstone on nights when my daughter doesn't want to watch an episode of B5 or a couple episodes of B5. And there's that moment in the first episode of Yellowstone. I don't know if you've watched Yellowstone or not. I mean, what the setup is, which is that Kevin Costner, John Dutton, owns the Yellowstone Ranch, which is the size of Rhode Island out in Montana. It's this massive thing. And he's being beset on all sides by people who want to take it away from him. Be the developers from California who want to take all this shitbag zero cost money and build, build, the Indians want to build a casino to take it away from him. This one, like, everybody's trying to take his freaking land from him. And then even to the reporter, the lesbian reporter from Seattle, who just believes that no man should own this much land and it should be a game preserve. Like, honey, what do you think his ranch is?
Yeah.
It's a massive game preserve.
Yeah. I
mean, he's running cows on it to try and make some friggin' property, to make enough money to just maintain the land. And these guys are using law, to try and raise the property value, so he won't be able to hold on to the land, and they're trying, in order to raise the property taxes to, all of this shit. And you're listening to this, and you're like, but in the very first episode, he's talking to his lawyer son, Jamie, who doesn't get it. And Jamie is like, the show opens with Jamie taking a meeting about trying to see if somebody will sell him a portion of the land, right? He's like, no. And did you tell him no? Unequivocally, no. Well, yeah, but like, it's just Jamie kept thinking no is in terms of a negotiation tactic in order to get a better price, in order to get leverage. Costner, John Dutton, turns around and goes, leverage. Leverage is the thing. Leverage is knowing that if you had all the money in the world, this is what you would buy. That's the whole show in a nutshell. Now, is John Dutton a sympathetic character? The way he's treated his family? No. Has he done terrible things in order to protect this property? Yes. Like, but has he lost, maybe even lost his way at times? Yes. But he's not wrong about that statement. You create leverage for yourself in order to accumulate assets that transcend money. They've got everybody so focused on chasing money that they're not chasing wealth.
Yeah, it's like what Alan Watts said. He's like, yeah, money is a means to an end. He's like, you don't eat a menu. It's like
Right.
order the food. The menu represents the food. Like don't. He's like, you go to the grocery store and you're like, oh my God, this I'm spending so much money, and he's like, no, you're giving them paper and you're getting milk in return. Like you're getting something, right? Don't get
You're
lost in the
trading,
hunt.
don't you're trading your time for this. Now, when you have to
Yes.
trade too much time, because that's what money is, just the intermediate
Yeah.
time. So that's what you're really complaining about when it costs so much. It's that
Yeah.
it's the amount of money, that the amount of time it costs you to buy that steak or to buy
Yeah.
that pasta or whatever. And that's why I believe in, in the inviolate property rights, single claims to property, not multiple claims to property and all the rest of it. Like, I believe in that. And it's the ethos of everything that we do, even that undergirds all of the higher level analysis. The higher level analysis is trying to figure out what these shitbags are trying to do to divorce you from your time. Now, if you can understand that, that is a revolutionary, that's the revolutionary spirit.
Yeah.
How can we to say no to the shitbags who just want to take all of our time away from us and tell us what the value of our time is? Tell us what the value, well, and by proxy of what our money is. If they can control the value of the money, they control the value of our time.
Yeah, that's the end game.
They understand that.
Yeah. No, that's the end game. That's the total coup. Kind of like a 180. What do you think actually ever happened to that? Was it ever solved, like the $2 trillion that went missing, and Donald Rumsfeld came out on September 10th, 2001, was like, we can't find 2.3, and the next day a plane hit the Pentagon where it was being it's like a meme, but no one ever dives deeper. I'm like, well, what actually did happen? So what do you think what is that? Do you think that's like black programs? Do you think that's CIA slush funds, like 2.3
Well, like I said
trillion?
earlier, like, I meant it when I said it. Why are we spending, Pentagon money on training coups in Africa? Because we need to play the grand game against the Russians and the Chinese. Like, what are we doing? When that comes out, and Putin, hosts 40 African leaders in Moscow,
Yeah.
like the same week. You're not winning.
No,
You're
you're
losing.
it's not
Stop it.
it's
Why
not
don't you
good
just
when
admit failure?
it's not good when you're making it hard to hate Putin. That's not good, man. Like
No.
that ain't
Right.
good.
Right.
Like,
I mean, when you make it easy to like Putin, when we should all be horrified by, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, not horrified, but if the Russians want to live under that system, they have that's more power to them,
yeah,
right?
whatever. Yeah.
But you know, when you realize, when you really study Russia, and you really study what Russia's ethos is as a government and as an economic entity, it's very, very clear. It's almost purely defensive, and any offense that they engage in,
Is
they are
defensive.
doing as a response to offensive measures taken against them. These are all counterpunches,
Yeah.
including Ukraine.
Yeah. Russia's
Putin is
also
a
like
judo
hyper.
guy. He's not, Putin's a judo guy.
Yeah. No, it's also like a hyper masculine culture, right? Which is a good thing.
I think
Yeah.
certainly in today's low T environment.
Yeah, no. Uh Just so I don't forget the other question about something about live. Oh, and I forgot because it's like a live stream. I forgot that people actually comment and shit.
You
Uh,
can actually, we can actually do some of that stuff. The LIBOR versus SOFR thing is just so SOFR is just the new debt indexing rate for the United States, and and
what's live? I don't even know what LIBOR is.
LIBOR is the London Interbank Offer Rate, and it's the overnight lending rate that banks use and to lend money to each other. It's also written into almost every previously. It was written into almost every dollar denominated contract, debt contract of any. So everything is going to be quoted as LIBOR plus or minus X amount, or
Okay.
LIBOR plus 3%, or LIBOR minus 2%, or whatever. And LIBOR is an unsecured rate that every night 18 London banks get together and decide what the rate's going to be for their benefit, not ours. SOFR is a collateralized market rate, a real market rate. Well, it's not real market rate because it's still influenced by the Fed funds rate and whatnot, but it's a much more market-driven thing built on, actual transactions, actual repo transactions in the SOFR markets, and the Fed targets a particular rate that it should be somewhere near the Fed funds rate, but it's going to trade there. And as long as it's trading near the Fed funds rate, then the U.S. banking system is showing zero real funding stress, because people can go into the SOFR market and they can get money at a couple of basis points over the Fed funds rate. Cool, that's what it's supposed to do. When it dips below that, means that you've got too much demand for money. When it goes ballistic, like it did in September 2019, it meant that the entire repo market froze up. That there weren't enough transactions but SOFR in 2019 was an illiquid market. Today it's more liquid than the classic Eurodollar market. So in broad strokes, for people to understand, LIBOR served the offshore dollar markets, the Eurodollar markets, okay, because it was a global interest rate. SOFR is an American rate that is collateralized and set by the U.S. interbank market. So it's a way, so in effect, LIBOR could be manipulated or would respond to the health of the global demand for dollars, whereas SOFR market responds to the domestic demand for dollars. This decouples demand for US dollars into two different markets. LIBOR is going away at the end of June. All new US debt as of January 1 last year is indexed to SOFR, not to LIBOR. All US dollar debt, that's regulated by the US banking system, has to be indexed to SOFR. The old contracts have to be rewritten to be indexed to SOFR by June 30th. Now there are plenty of things in place to, if that doesn't happen, that the contracts will still get quoted as a means by which I can get into the technicals on this, but just understand that the transition is happening and the bases are covered at how things will happen, and there may be some shock, but it won't be terrible. What it'll do after June 30th is it'll set up virtuous cycles for everybody to get on SOFR, whether they like it or not. Now you can say that that's not a market process. It's not, because SOFR is still a centralized thing created that takes its cues from the Fed funds rate. But then again, you could also argue that, like Jeff Snyder did about the Eurodollar markets, that the Eurodollar markets and LIBOR dictated monetary policy to the Federal Reserve, regardless of what the Fed wanted to do. Well, guess what? Now SOFR is going to do that. So now the U.S. banking system is going to, if it's going to wag the monetary policy dog, if anybody's going to wag the monetary policy dog, it's going to be SOFR, not LIBOR. It's a fundamental change, and the Europeans are absolutely doing everything imaginable to stop that from happening. Okay,
Gotcha.
because they can't work with this.
Okay.
So the transition to SOFR is incredibly important.
Okay. Somebody else commented, uh, any thoughts on Canadian banks? Last year during the trucker convoy, the Trudeau government began freezing bank accounts of protesters, but had to back off due to the threat of a bank run. Were they told to stop? And then another question is, can Tom explain how the Treasury is manipulating the bond market and what it should really look like? I don't know if either of those tickle your fancy.
Yeah, they do. From what I've heard, from what I've read, and what I've seen, the Canadian banks are all moving towards SOFR. Like a lot of the Canadian banks over, like TD North, and there's another big one I can't remember off the top of my head, have already moved over. Have already declared that they're moving over to SOFR. So that's good. That means what it amounts to is that the Canadian banks, like the U.S. banks, have pushed back against this Davos agenda to destroy commercial banking. They've said, look, no, we're not doing this. And the way to do that is, again, to allow Powell to continue to do what he needs to do, which is to shrink the Fed's balance sheet and return proper risk assessment in the form of interest rates, in some form of it. We're not going to have a free market for interest, for money, as long as the Federal Reserve's alive. But this is a step back towards an independent Federal Reserve that doesn't have to take it, that isn't forced to take its cues from the offshore shadow banking system. And the Canadian banks are all aligned with this. There's a growing political revolution happening in Canada as well. Is it going to be perfect? No. Is Pierre Poilievre the guy that had the front runner in the Conservative Party? No. Is he better than Trudeau? Yes. But you can't get much worse than Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland, who are, mother weffers all the way down the fucking line. So there you go. I'm going to step out for just a second. I'm going to reach over and get another cigar if we're going to chat for a little while.
Yeah,
you talk for a second.
Go for it. Yeah, well, I don't know shit about economics, so yeah, I don't know. I think Tom wants to raise it to 12%. I don't even know what he wants to raise. I want to raise it to 50% just to make a point. Now, I don't know what that means, but
no, that would be bad. That's
okay.
Even Erdogan in Turkey was like, look, we're not raising. The IMF kept telling him to raise interest rates to 30%. He's like, if I do that, I won't have an economy.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people make these arguments, especially the IMF. They make these arguments that, well, if 12% didn't work or 20% didn't work, well, then we have to go to 30. Well, no, I don't believe that an economy responds linearly to interest rates, regardless of what the number is. Like, I think it's a sigmoid curve. I'm getting like geeky about this. I think that when we're out of it, when you're not in a crisis period, I think then yes, you can have there's a portion of the interest rate curve in which you can move interest rates to adjust economic conditions. But then again, the market can do that. We don't need the market to go nuts. We don't need central banks to do this for us. But by the same token, once you get too high, what are you doing? I mean, you're just choking off capital formation. You get them too low, you're just increasing credit to infinity. So clearly, the arguments about zero bound or negative bound interest rates if you don't believe that those are valid, well, then you can't believe that infinite interest rates are valid either. And so from a high if you think of it in terms of mathematics, just like drawing a graph, and you've got interest rates on the vertical graph, and you've got efficacy of monetary policy on the x-axis. Well, it's clearly a sigmoid curve. Once you get down below a particular rate, you're not getting any more bang for your buck. Once you get above a certain rate, you're not getting any more bang for your buck. So, and once you're outside of those bands, then you, as a central bank, you actually have to back off. And if you've got low growth, you go to the upper portion of the linear portion of the thing and stop, and just hold it there. Just kind of the way I give Elvira Nabiulina over at the Bank of Russia a lot of crap, because I think she's too IMF trained, and I also think that she might even be a friggin' WAF agent, or at least because she's so she was so trained by the IMF, she can't get out of that paradigm. I give her a lot of shit, but for the most part, she's also navigated the politics of the situation in Russia very well, and she hasn't done a terrible job of managing the Russian economy via interest rates. She's made mistakes over the last 10 years, holding interest rates too high for too long, or not letting them. She's done, and I think she did that on purpose. But then again, Putin just took her to the freaking woodshed and said, "Look, if you don't start lowering rates, I'm going to have you taken behind the chemical shed and shot." And then amazingly, the next day after Putin was in the office, like, she cuts by 50 basis points. But she was at 10.5% when she did that, which was clearly being done to stifle. This was back in like 2015, 2016, clearly done to stifle economic growth, because she was taking her orders from, people who were hostile to Russia, in my personal opinion. So I just think that but hers is she's a good example of what it looks like when you have a central banker, a head of a central bank, that does even remotely good work. And the banking system in Russia is a mess, and yada yada yada. But this is if we, let me put it this way: as bad as many problems I have with Nabulina, I would have taken her over Janet Yellen any day of the week, because she's clearly not trying to sell her country out completely to these these old European colonialists. So that was the one. That was the one question. What was the other one?
Um, Somebody said, how does this all fit in with SVB? But I think we did that at the beginning. Somebody asked, Tom claimed on Mel K's show SVB was a front for illegal immigration, fentanyl trafficking.
Yeah.
Where's he getting that from? And does this end the Dems election rigging apparatus? I don't even know. Personal question. Do cigars have flavor if you're not smoking them, if you're just chomping on them? Like, why did Curtis LeMay always do that? Just
I mean, yeah, they you taste the wrapper a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I guess they do.
I mean,
never really think about it.
I just figured maybe it's part
I mean, what I'm saying is that, it's clear that's where the money was going, because that's where we're going to find all this stuff out once somebody gets to SIVB's books. We're going to find out the same things that we found out about FTX.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just saying, I'm just extending. This is my spidey sense talking.
Yeah.
Like, I took one look at FTX. I said, this is probably what they were doing. And then it came out, and I'm like, oh, look, this is what they were doing. Well, guess what? We're going to find out the same thing about SIVB, which is, by the way, why Janet Yellen was so desperate to sell SIVB off to somebody, and she couldn't find any takers, because nobody on Wall Street would buy the freaking bank.
Yeah. I should have got some money from SVB. They probably would have funded me, right?
I don't know, maybe.
I don't know. I'm a straight white male with an American flag. They might.
Yeah, I'm Tommy. I don't know, man.
I might be too risky for them. They might look at this and be like, "No, man, we'll fund the transgender petting zoo, but we're not doing this shit. You fucking Nazi." No. Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, I think Tim Dillon said, "Don't worry about the Deutsche Bank." He's like, because their main, he's like, they have stable assets, human trafficking, gun running, and the
that's the other, and that's the other thing about like Deutsche Bank and
what the fuck's going on with Deutsche Bank?
Like, they're like, well, that's all. You see, that gets into the whole AT1, additional tier one capital, conditionally convertible bonds and stuff. I was trying to stay away from at the beginning of this, because, again, how geeky do you want to get here? I think
I don't understand that at all. I just tweeted yesterday, nuke Deutsche Bank. Like, I don't know. I said let's give weapons to Russia. Carrigan 2024. I think we should be fucking pincer attack with Russia. Let's go fuck up Ukraine. But that's why I don't, have any power in anything.
No, I mean, look, what
you get as geeky as you want, man.
There's a funny thing going on. I mean, I laid it out really well on the Duran live stream I did the other day. I kind of don't want to do it again today.
Okay, no, you're fine. I don't.
And it's not because I'm trying to avoid the question or anything. It's I really have, and I also laid it out on the podcast.
I got you.
Blog post I did the other day as well. I think it's there, but the situation with Deutsche Bank is that it is contagion from Credit Suisse. Okay. That they're intimately in, and that the whole convertible, what they call COCO, or conditionally convertible additional tier one capital bonds that Europe gorged on in order to stabilize their banking system over the last 15 years, it's all now impaired badly. And this goes right to their capital adequacy ratios that they need to maintain in order to not be in violation of the Basel III regulations. And then they would have to raise additional capital. They'd have to go to the market. They'd have to sell assets. They'd have to do, and that's what everybody's like desperately trying to stop from happening, because that would mean Deutsche Bank would collapse, and then everything else. And here's the thing, and this is the stuff I haven't said today, but I've said before, for anybody who's watched me before, that American banks over the last 4 years, the big banks, we're talking JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Citigroup and others, have all said, no, we're disentwining ourselves from the crap that's going on in Europe. We won't take European debt as repo collateral at par. They won't do it anymore. They haven't done it for years. For those guys to get to get any collateral, U.S. Treasuries, to back up their U.S. dollar deposits, they got to go to the Fed to get them. That's why the Fed was willing to open up a swap rate. That's why the Fed was willing to keep open the swap lines for currency swaps. And I took a lot of shit on Twitter for this. And I'm like, guys, they gave the European Union, the ECB. Okay, so they rolled over a 7-day interest rate swap, or currency swap arrangement with the ECB at prevailing interest rates. Did the Fed cut interest rates immediately in order to give the European Union a euro dollar loan, pledge some euros as collateral to get dollars? Did they give that to them at below the current Fed funds rate? Did they go in and slash the Fed funds rate 200 basis points in order to give them that loan at 2.75% as opposed to 4.85? No. They gave them that loan at the same rate they're giving it to everyone else. They're treating the ECB like a fucking credit union in Mississippi. If that's not the biggest goddamn slap in the face I've ever heard, I don't know. Like, that's Powell telling Lagarde, yeah, you can have dollars if you need them, but you're going to pay through the nose for them. There's your proof. Like, I literally took shit from these these idiots on Twitter. Like, this whole, they literally went after me about this. That whole theory about the Fed going after the Eurodollar market's bullshit. Look, $469 million worth of swap line. I'm like, yeah, 4.85%. Fuck a whole lot of you. The ECB just bellied up to the Fed's version of the discount window, did the walk of shame, and said we need some money. And the Fed published it on their website. They didn't even keep it secret behind the scenes like they normally would. If it was Yellen who was in charge of the Fed, that would have been done, and nobody would have ever found out about it. Powell just burped it out there. Yeah. Like, the ECB just did the walk of shame, and so it's like Vincini. Inconceivable. Like, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Yeah.
Like, fuck's wrong with you? Like you're just so friggin' programmed, and you just so want me to be wrong so that you can be right, as opposed to, well, you're gonna make a fucking fool out of yourself in public. I'm like, okay. When your opponent is making a mistake,
don't interrupt.
Let them continue. Yeah. Lady, this is a line from Babylon 5. I just watched this episode the other night. Londo's 3 wives were all arguing amongst themselves, and because he just told them he's gonna divorce 2 of them and keep 1. He's like, ladies, continue. With a big smile on his face, going, "This is great,
fantastic."
That's like, I'm like, okay. Shit, dude.
I need 3 wives.
I don't. I can barely keep up with 1.
Yeah, I don't even have 1. I don't know why. I was playing with my buddies last night. We were gaming, and one guy was like, "Yeah, my rule is just like you never get back with an ex, like because you broke up for a reason." And I was like, "Yeah," but I was like, "But I guess that wouldn't count if it was like a Katy Perry or someone." And he was like, "Yeah, but that implies you dated them." And I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right." I don't know. Like, in my mind, I was like, well, on the off chance I date and then break up with Emma Watson.
Yeah, like, yeah, or
sitting in my chair.
In my world, it'd be I dated and broke up with Sandy Bullock, and I'm like,
Yeah, I'm sitting in my
Yeah,
chair.
if Sandy wants me back, I'm going. Like, it's like
I'm literally sitting in my chair, like my gut protruding from my pajama pants, and I'm like, no, listen, if I was dating Emma, I'm like, what fucking delusional world do I live in?
exactly.
Like, listen, I'd maybe take her back. Like, no, dude, you're fucking
Maybe
playing
take her
video.
back.
You're playing video games to 4 people streaming. Like, shut up. Um, why did the Bank of England raise interest rates? Is it a countermeasure?
The Bank of England's raising interest rates because they can't allow capital to flip. They're desperately trying to, just like the ECB, they're being forced by the Fed to raise interest rates to keep pace and not have the currencies collapse. Okay, so they're in a very delicate position in England and in the EU. They don't want the euro to collapse. They don't want the pound to collapse. So in order to continue to, just like they don't want this, like the Fed doesn't want the dollar to collapse. So how do you do that? Well, you raise interest rates in order to try and make them better investments. Hey, I'll give you more money if you invest in our stuff. And but there's a whole lot of swap lines, credit, interest rate swaps, and all this stuff that's out there, all these derivatives that people talk about all the time that are out there, and they're all indexed to their carry trades that are out there that are indexed and are only profitable if the exchange rates stay within a very tight band or the interest rate differentials stay within a very tight band. So every time the Fed makes an aggressive move to raise interest rates, everybody else now has to follow them. But at the end of the day, and this is one of the things that I say all the time, and a lot of people don't get it, and it's okay. You're not currency traders. You're not bond guys. I get it. Like, I didn't understand this stuff until I finally had to sit down and fucking learn it. Okay. In order to try and explain it to y'all. Okay. So a year and a half ago, I didn't understand any of this stuff. Okay. But when you go through the mechanisms of the trades as they unwind, when you put pressure on one leg of an interest rate swap, or you put pressure on one leg of a carry trade, and it moves against the parameters of one of the contract, and then one person is going to have to pay the other one, because once the thresholds were hit, then the other person has to pay to make the other one whole, because that was the agreement. Well, if you don't want those blowing up and forcing everybody now to all of a sudden have to come up with cash that they don't have to pay off the contracts, then the central banks work their asses off to maintain the currency, exchange rates, and the bond spreads. Now, if you're the ECB and you're worried about the spreads between Italian and German debt because you're trying to manage that fucking thing, in order to keep Italian debt from blowing up, you might have to, if Italian debt is blowing up, then you also have to, keep the German debt may have to keep pace with it. That means you might have to sell euros. So you can protect credit spreads, or you can protect the exchange rate, but you can't protect both simultaneously. So Lagarde's choice in front of her now, and whoever it is over at the Bank of England, I can't remember. It doesn't matter. He's just a functionary.
Pedophile.
Some dude. I can't remember his name. It'll pop into my head in a minute. It's not Mark Carney. It's not Mervyn King. It's some other damn guy. Lagarde's problem now is she needs to maintain credit spreads, especially between U.S. and German debt, and then, of course, internally within the Eurozone. So in order to do that, she either has to defend those or defend the euro, but you can't defend both. And during crisis periods where everything is a fucking mess, yeah, the euro's been all over the place. Credit spreads have been maintained and everything else. She's been able to make this stuff work because there's a lot of fucking money flushing around, and there's a lot of turmoil, and there's a lot of things happening that would not normally happen. But once the chaos and the crisis starts to subside in the U.S. markets, it's going to start creating crisis and tension in the other markets. And that's what she's staring at. That's part of what happened on Friday. We had a big run into the euro. Credit spreads were starting to tighten. Gold was at $2,000 an ounce. And then,
Where's gold going?
What's that?
Where's gold going?
But it may go down and then up, and it's gonna do a typical thing. The Fed still doesn't want to necessarily have much higher gold price, because it doesn't want gold screaming that the Fed has made a mistake.
But they don't control.
Everybody else wants a higher gold price because they need it.
Well, gold is just like that's like the most stable thing. Like it's when it
It's just
goes up,
gold.
it's not really going up. It's just it's going up for inflation, but it's like relative value is the same, right?
It is an ounce of gold is an ounce of gold. It's how
Yeah.
many dollars does it buy you? It's real wealth.
Yeah. I think in G. Edward Griffin's Jekyll Island, he was like an ounce of gold could like buy you a month's rent in an apartment outside of Chicago in like 1904. And like right now, yeah, an ounce of gold about pays for my rent and my utilities for like a single male, and I'm in Portland, Maine, and it's like, yeah, so the dollars, whatever. That's the inflation. That's how you can see how much they've fucked you over the years is the fiat gang rape that's been going on for the last 110 years.
Right.
Um, sometimes I wonder why this podcast hasn't brought in more sponsors, and then just I
And
leave,
then you're like, and
and then
then
I
the
listen
fiat money
back to like the
gang rape
sentence
comes
I
out of your
just
mouth.
said. Yeah, and then I just like the fiat gang. We're like, yeah, you can't really whatever. But just a little aside. Yeah, you kind of see how fucked that is. But the Fed doesn't control that. I mean, gold kind of is. It's
No, I
you know,
mean the gold price matters, and it does, and like it's important. Like, and the Fed does the Fed knows that the price of gold can rise, but only so far, and then they'll like it but they can manage that, and that's fine. Like gold ended this week at $1,980 an ounce. Did it break through two? It broke through 2,000. It's good. There's going to be an epic fight for $2,000, but it's still like the third highest weekly close in gold's history,
what
and
does
that's
it
a
mean?
big deal.
What does it mean? Like I saw a column tweeted something about like Dennis Rodman's defending the $2,000 like mark. Like, but like
I
what does
missed
that
that.
mean? What does that mean defending? Like, shouldn't it just rise naturally?
No, it's in the futures market. It's in
So
there's
there's
a
human
number of different
fuckery.
ways to screw with gold, because remember, gold trades like a currency.
Yeah.
Never forget that gold trades as a currency.
What's the
There are two prices for gold. There is the currency price of gold, and there is the spot price of gold, which is the physical price. Spot price of gold is the price you're going to pay plus or minus.
yeah.
Okay. And the currency price, people forget this. Like, you can go look it up on investing.com, and it's XAU over USD. It's traded as a currency, and it trades in the currency markets as a currency. Okay. So there's a lot of shenanigans that gets played in the currency markets in order to keep gold under, you know,
But
under,
eventually the truth comes
but
out.
but the trend, you can't fight the trend.
Yeah.
Like, so the day-to-day moves don't matter. Like, you know, at some point, the Fed is going to flip and want a higher gold price. Today is not that day, but it's there, and it's on the horizon. Right now, a lot of the other, like the European Union, wants a higher gold price because they need a higher gold price to offset the hole in their balance sheet from all of the 85% of the ECB's balance sheet is vulnerable to a rate shock, is vulnerable to rising interest rates, because it's mostly European sovereign debt, US treasuries. They're all falling in value. When yield rises, the value of the bond falls. The price of the bond falls. You're
Mm.
still paying a standard. It's bond math, right? You have a bond that pays 4% at par, right? It bids that bond up to 110, 10% over par. Well, you're still getting the 4% coupon, but you paid 10% over the value. So now you got to amortize over the life of the bond the price you paid. So the effective yield goes down, right? Because you didn't pay $1,000 for the bond, and it's going to pay out 4% a year. You paid $110 or $1,100 for the bond. Well, that $100 has to be subtracted from the amount of dividends that you're going to receive over the course of the bond in order to get the effective yield of the bond. Well, the same thing happens in reverse. You buy a $1,000 bond for $850. That $150 gets added back to the value, because at the end of the bond, you're going to get $1,000 back. That's the way that's supposed to work, right? You loan the government $1,000. 5 years from now, they're going to give you your $1,000 back plus the 4% coupon, for example, that they paid you every year. So they're going to give you $40 in interest for 5 years. So that you're not just going to get your $1,000 back, you're going to get $1,200 over 5 years, right? Well, if you pay $1,100 for that $1,000 bond, you're only effectively making $200 in interest. Well, if you paid $900 for the bond, now you're getting 6% on the day the bond was issued.
Yeah.
That number, those numbers change the closer you get to the maturity of the bond, blah, 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 blah. It's a big complex equation, but it's all just math. It's all just algebra. Okay. So just understand that as bond yields rise, the value of the bond is falling. And conversely, as the yield falls, the price of the bond is going up.
Who has the most gold?
The United States does. The IMF has a lot too. The IMF, I think, has 11,000 tons. The Americans have 133.5. The Eurozone has about 10,000 total, but it's still pledged. It's still nominally owned by the individual member central banks.
Tons of gold. Jesus.
Tons.
That's U.S. gold reserves.
And then you ask yourself the question, how much do the Russians actually have as opposed to what they tell us they have? And how much do the Chinese actually have versus what they tell us they have? Because remember, they only tell you what's in the account, the particular account. That's part of their Forex reserves.
Jesus.
I don't think the Russians have 2,300 or 2,400 tons of gold. I think they have 10,000 tons of gold. But they're all off balance. But those other tons are off balance sheet, waiting to be used and deployed as a nuclear weapon. Same thing with the Chinese. Maybe they don't have 10,000. Maybe they have 5,000, 6,000. Doesn't really matter. I think the Chinese have 10,000 tons of gold.
Jesus. That's the amount of gold at Fort Knox, 147.3 million ounces.
Yep, at $2,000 an ounce.
The highest price, or the highest historic, was December 31st, 1941 at 649.6 million ounces.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Wasn't FDR like confiscating all the gold?
Yeah.
That fucking.
Yeah, well, he was a commie. He destroyed the structure of the Federal Reserve. He devalued the price of gold. He devalued the dollar in order and increased the price of gold. And then we tried to go back. And then we tried to go back to the pre-war gold price after printing shit tons of money to 170% of GDP during World War II. And that's why Bretton Woods failed. Like, why were we at $35 an ounce? There was no way we should have ever been at $35 an ounce. Gold should have already been $70 an ounce or whatever. It was all just stupid.
Yeah,
but we did exactly the same thing that the Brits did after World War One. Most likely because the Brits told us what to do. Well, I don't even get into those fucking people. What time is it? 3:40. I'm gonna have to run in about 10 minutes or so.
No, I was gonna say no. We gotta wrap up before 4 because I got another one.
Yep.
Yeah. No. Yeah. My grandpa passed in, I think, 2010. Yeah. So he lived through all that, and I think after he passed, like, my grandma found that he had just been like storing gold in their closet. Yep. It was just like, fuck off. Like, I'm not fuck off to my grandma. Like, fuck off to the government. It was just like, eat a dick.
Basically, I'm just gonna keep stack. And the people who are stacking, be it Sats in Bitcoin or gold coins or silver coins, are going to do very well.
Yeah.
And if you've got real estate that you've got low carry costs on, or that you can offset the carry costs being taxes, insurance,
yeah,
blah, 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 blah. If you can offset the carry costs on, also real wealth. Like the 20 acres next to me is owned by a guy, he's got it in silviculture. He's got it in trees.
Yeah.
So every 8 years or so, he has a clear cut, gets some money off of it. He gets a huge tax break from the state of Florida. He's only paying $175 an acre for the land in taxable value versus the $9 or $10 an acre that it's worth, while his trees are growing and making him value. And trees grow 6 to 8% a year. Trees are a great fucking investment. It's real wealth, baby.
Yeah. Doesn't Russia have a ton of fucking timber?
Oh, yeah, they have an unbelievable amount of timber.
Yeah, they've got absurd.
If Putin really, and he's been offering this to people, he's been offering them land grants for Russian forest. But you have to go and settle it, right? But I mean, even then, like, you're going to talk about you unlocking value in Russia. Like, dude, like, people should, timber REITs in Russia would be an unbelievable fucking.
You ever hear the conspiracy that the gold rush was fomented just to get a bunch of people to go out west, settle it, get in skirmishes?
No, I never heard that actually, but
I love that one. I love It's to get a bunch of people to go, because why the fuck else would you leave New York in a wagon? Like,
and go to California.
yeah, you have to put out an incentive, and then the Indians attack you, and then Uncle Sam's got to come in. Kind of brilliant, because most people like didn't find fucking gold. They just built these little towns along, and then yeah, and then it led to railroads and shit. Yeah, I think my great uncle, my grandfather's brother, also had a ton of gold because he was on D-Day at 18. I think he's just like, fuck off. I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want. Like, I'd serve this country. Don't tell me I can't have gold, you fucking wheelchair bound faggot. Like, again, the no sponsors,
Can't help yourself. Can you,
no
Tom?
no reflection. No, no, it's them, not me. Yeah, no, it's me. I hold the
No, Tommy. When you really think about this, people ask me about these things, and I'm like, I didn't name it Gold Goats and Guns for a reason. For no reason.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's your ethos.
yeah,
Real
yeah,
wealth.
yeah. It's real
I
wealth.
mean, in a large parts of this world, a man still measures his wealth in goats.
Yeah, yeah. The rest is just a game of musical chairs, and like
Right.
you're gonna get fucked. But part of me thinks that the Wall Street thing's still strong because I think the most expensive penthouse ever just went on sale in Manhattan. It's for $250 million. Yeah, it's on like the 130th floor. It's got its own
And if
deck.
some idiot in Europe buys that in order to protect his wealth from what's coming to Europe, he's going to lose 50% of his money
Yeah,
because he's never going to be able to sell that for $250 million 5 years
no,
from now.
but he might be fine with losing 50% if he gets
Maybe
to
because he
keep
might have
50.
lost
Because
70
he
for
gets to, because he gets
75
to,
or
yeah,
80%
because he
leaving in
gets
the
to keep
union.
50. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's why it really is kind of wild just how much of New York is just like empty penthouses that's just wealth
It's
stored
becoming a
for
theme park. Tommy, it's becoming a theme park.
I
They're
think
gonna
it's
they're
hilarious.
smart. They should put a wall around it, turn it into a John Carpenter movie. But that's just me.
I think that I do hate that they won't build a tower taller than the Freedom Tower.
Hmm.
It's like the antithesis of New York.
Yes, it
Every
is.
skyscraper that went up was like vehemently opposed by everyone. And then they were like, fuck off, we're building they used to be like 10 stories is too high. Like you
Right.
have New York because every tower was just like, no, fuck you. I'm gonna go higher. And now they're like,
Dude,
we
I
can't
lived in
go
Gainesville,
higher.
Florida for 25 years, and they had a rule in place that you couldn't build a building over 3 stories.
Yeah.
That the Siegel building and on University Avenue in Gainesville was the 7 or 8 stories tall. It's an old building. It's over 100 years old. One of the few, for in America, hey, that's a historic building. The University of Florida, that was grandfathered in. That didn't have to be torn down because the commies said no more than 3 stories. The University of Florida on its land had to get a variance from the city of Gainesville to build Beatty Towers, which is a big 15 or 20 story dorm building. Today in Gainesville, oh no, that's gone, and they're building 7 and 8 story tower over shop complexes on the northeast corner of the University of Florida campus, which is University and 13th. It's like kind of like the center of the old city. The shit that's going in there now is insane, and what they're building there is insane. And most of it's empty, which is weird because Gainesville is growing like a weed, but it's growing too fast. And they had to do that in order to compete because everything outside of the city limits was where all the investment money was going. So eventually, once once certain old covenants that were and agreements that were in place for the unincorporated part of Gainesville in Alachua County, that was just to the west of the city limits. The developers who owned that land just waited out the county commission. Eventually, they built all the shit that they wanted to build, and there's just an unbelievable amount of building out there, and which is on the west side of campus. And oh, by the way, that whole area wants to secede from Alachua County and form its own new county. They don't even want to be a part of Alachua because they don't want to be ruled by the commies anymore.
Jeez.
So it's actually really quite cool.
Jeez.
So, oh yeah, I mean, it is really quite cool.
Last 2 minutes. Do you think what do you think Trump's chances are next year?
I think,
Election fortification aside.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I want Trump to win. I
I don't
really
I,
don't
I
think.
don't really
I don't really know that Trump has learned his lesson yet. he's still complaining about, and he's still complaining about fucking Powell, the idiot. Powell's doing everything imaginable to actually. Trump never really embraced the Ronald Reagan role that he should have embraced in 2016.
Yeah.
Which is, yep, it's going to suck, but we can get through this. No, Trump is still selling the Pollyanna that we can make America great again by levering up debt and going back to the old. So I think he's right on a lot of issues, and I think he's wrong on the core issues. And that's what doomed his presidency the first time around. I mean, again, he's still out there campaigning that we should be taking Syria's oil. What are you, an idiot? Like, this was dumb. It was one of the worst foreign policy decisions you could have made. You should have been the anti-Obama and gotten this out of Syria. But no, listening to neocons, trying to pressure Iran off the face of the map, and all I did was push everybody into Iran.
Yeah.
But it's going to come down to the next year, what happens in Congress, and how, watch the budget fights, watch the debt ceiling fight very hard. If the born again McCarthy that we've seen recently holds the line, I'm not giving high odds on this, but he holds the line on fiscal spending, he holds the line on war spending and all the rest of it. If we start to see that, then the presidential candidate who embraces that in a Reagan style populist movement, which says, look, we really do have to make America great again, and Donald Trump's not the guy to do it, that guy's going to win.
Yeah.
Or Trump has to stop campaigning like he's trying to grab the squishy Dems that hate him and will never like him, and just dispense with all that bullshit and really, really talk about America first in a way that is real. Like, yeah, our banks are superior, and our system of capital formation and all of it is still better than everybody else's, and we can rebuild, and we know how to do this. And I don't know, the way he's campaigning recently has me very worried that he's still Donald Trump.
Yeah, he's losing me on the utopian. We're gonna build cities and flying cars, and I'm like, that's whenever the promise is starts to get ridiculous. I'm like, oh, there's no.
How about pipelines and bridges? You fucking retard.
Pipelines and bridges. Yeah, what?
How about grain silos and diesel refineries? You fucking retard.
Yeah,
but that's what we need.
We don't need new cities. What kind of central planning horseshit's that? Cities arise where they should arise.
Yeah, we should be strengthening rural America, not urban America.
Yeah, no.
But remember, Donald Trump is still just a shitbag property developer from Queens.
He is that. All right. Well,
I think that'll do.
Yeah, I said we wrap this one up. Guys, go in the description. You can find all Tom's blogs and YouTube and Odyssey and Patreon.
I don't do anything on any of the video platforms anymore.
Right.
If you really want to find me, I don't stream anymore. I only use my YouTube channel for the private podcast I do for my patrons. That may change in the future, but as of right now, I have zero Tom Luongo branded video presence anywhere.
Gotcha.
I do, and all the media appearances I do, including this one, will be publicly available on my Patreon feed. So if you're interested in becoming a patron, you can go to the Patreon. You can, look up media, just do a search for posts with the tag media. And if you're not a patron, you'll have access to them. But I try to put them all there. So as a one-stop shop, I don't put them up on the blog, on the public blog. I put them on the Patreon service. Because, well, if you're already a Patreon, well, then you're a warm lead. Sorry.
Gotcha. No, you're good. I don't give a shit.
Got to make the shekels, baby.
Yeah, I got you. Shekels make the world go round, or make it flat. I don't know.
Or make it flat.
Yeah.
And I'm not a flat earther either.
No, neither am I. I had some guy reach out to me. He was like, "Dude, love your podcast. Love to come on and shoot the shit about flat Earth." And so I sent him a link to my interview with Charlie Duke, who walked on the moon. And I was like, we already debunked it. He didn't get back to me. But yeah, dude. Well, Tom, thanks for your time, man. As always, I love chatting with you. It's always an unholy alliance, and I enjoy it immensely. Yeah, dude. Till next time.
It's all good. Thank you, Tommy. You have a great weekend. We will talk soon. So.
You too,
All right.
buddy.